Welcome, all of you watching. Welcome to my panelists, two multilingual learners and ways to boost learning and growth. I'm so excited to be joining you today. I'm Tisha Poncio, Team Wakelet, and I'm here with my counterpart, Ryan McGinnis, also Team
Hello,
Wakelet.
Team
Welcome,
Wicked.
Ryan. We
Welcome,
love your
Tish.
background.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've got the wave in your background, and we have two incredible people joining us today. I'm so excited about this webinar because I know these two people are experts. They're going to give you really incredible tips today. First, we have Wakelet Ambassador Susan Gare. You can find more about her at susangare.com. I mean, you can't get any more official than that. Susan, welcome. We're so excited for you to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then, last but certainly not least, from Microsoft Flip, we have Feli Lopez, Educator Innovation Lead. We're so excited to hear from you today. Your background, I have to say, Ryan, I'm really sorry, but Feli has won the background. I have honestly, those of you that have watched her know, I am jealous of her background on a daily basis. Years ago, I would even say to Omar, hey, can you please tell me how you're doing this? So I feel like I'm going to pay you to come design my studio over here, Feli.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Yes, my name is Feli and I'm one of the Educator Innovation Leads at Team Flip. I'm very excited. Estoy bien emocionada. We are going to have an amazing time together and it's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you all. Muchísimas gracias por la invitación. And I'm going to be jumping from English to Spanish, but mainly English, of course. And it's one of those strategies that I want to show and to implement in today's conversation, so that we can see and we can experience all of these strategies that we do in the classroom. So definitely, I'm looking at the chat, and the chat is.
I was going to say, do you recognize any familiar names, Susan or Feli or Ryan?
Yeah, I see my friend Debbie Jensen is in the studio there.
Nice. I see Elizabeth Polo.
Yeah, and I see nuestro amigo Sergio Ruiz from Mexico, a great friend of ours and an ambassador as well. So thank you all so much for being here. Muy contentos y muy contentas de que estén aquí con nosotros. Thank you.
I love that. Feli, thank you so much for doing that. I want to say, just as a non-Spanish speaker, I love when you do that because I feel like I learn from you as you are immersing me into both languages, right? Which is really what we're here to talk about. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into it. We're going to do a panel discussion. We're going to hear from our experts. I know Ryan has some answers ready as well, so he wants to jump in on the conversation. I prepared some answers as well. I think this is a really great topic, and I think lots of people need support in this topic. So the first question we have, and those of you that are in the chat, please make sure that you also participate. Please jump in, give your answers. Feel free to tell us what you're doing when these questions are shared with the panel as well. So outside of obvious academic challenges, what do you believe are the main issues that multilingual learners face in school compared to the challenges of English-speaking students? Are there any that are not obvious? Are there any challenges that are not obvious or immediately identifiable?
So if I might go first, I'm an adult educator, and so I educate the parents of the kids who are in the United States. And I think the situation is somewhat different if you're international or if you're US based, because international speakers, it's generally one language and you can be bilingual and go back and forth as you want. But in a multicultural classroom, such as in the US, it's much more difficult because you can't possibly speak all the different languages of your students. So in that case, I think the students that come in, number one, they have a lot of experience, a lot of strengths, and I often think that teachers don't exploit that. And so that is where I would start with, is really learning who your students are and exploiting their strengths so that they can feel more comfortable with the English speakers.
I think that's a great point, Susan. Getting to know people, right, in the beginning. And I know as an educator in the classroom, I spent loads of time in the beginning of the school year, or when new students would come in, really just getting to know them. And actually, there are some people who don't believe that that is a valuable thing to do in the beginning. So what do you have to say to those people who would challenge you on that?
Oh, you have to know your students or you can't possibly teach. Right now, I'm teaching in Afghanistan remotely, and I don't get to see my students, but I still get to know them by asking them questions, having them write about their worlds. And one of the things that you can do, and I'm going to bring Wakelet in here because I love Wakelet, sorry, is you can have your students actually do a poster board on Wakelet and talk about their countries and talk about what they like to do, and just have them share that with the other students who might not know where they're from.
Absolutely. Felly?
And I love what you all mentioned, the importance of relationships, right? And it's not only, I think it's not only for us as language acquisition teacher, but it should be for every teacher in campus, everywhere in the planet, because one of the main challenges that our babies experience is that social isolation. So when our multilingual learners come from different cultures, different backgrounds, they might have a hard time adjusting to the new environment, and they may feel isolated from their peers, from their teachers, basically from everywhere in campus and sometimes outside of campus as well. So all of these can make it very difficult for our babies, for our students to make friends. And they may also feel like they don't belong.
Yes.
So the importance of relationships, right? And if they feel that they don't belong, all of this can affect their mental health and academic performance, because that social emotional learning goes hand to hand. They go like this, juntitas, like together in the academic performance and everything that they are going to learn in the classroom. So I 1,000% agree with what you said, because by establishing those relationships, the learning is going to happen. So our students don't learn from people they don't like. I call them babies. I call my students my babies.
They are.
Some of my babies are already 30 years old, but they're still going to be my babies. Very passionate about teaching. So and by establishing these with them, the relationship with them, that's when the learning will happen. So I think at the beginning of the year, we need to establish the time to know our babies. Like Susan was saying, it's so important knowing our kids, know where they're coming from, their background, and then we start with the instruction.
I love how passionate you were about that, Felly. I mean, honestly, the truth is, I think a lot of the educators that I surrounded myself with feel the exact same way. And I remember thinking as a young teacher, if I don't know them and they don't feel like they belong, they're not going to listen to anything else I have to say. And I think that goes across the board with teachers in general, but I think especially your teachers who are multilingual. This webinar, preparing for this webinar, I don't know, Ryan, did you think back to some of the students that you had taught or had in class or even had at your school who came in not knowing the language and feeling isolated? Because I went back and reflected on some of my students. Tell me a little bit about what you think about this challenge.
Yeah, I think I love what everybody's saying so far. I think it all comes down to the relationships and setting the SEL tone for your classroom. But I think that's something that, like, we as teachers, we all know that we need to do that and get that link in with the kids and get that buy-in from the students so that they can learn from us. But sometimes we often forget about it because we're so focused on getting to the content or getting to that meaningful aspect. And I think about this question, the first thing that came to my mind too was just being able for those students to come into this new place and have those different academic expectations and norms too. I know that's part of that and that feeling. That's why I put that one comment up about a safe place for learning, is I feel like that's what we got to establish too. It's not just making sure we do understand and get that relationship with them, but that we find a way to convey those academic expectations, because from region to region, even state to state, those academic expectations change. And then you look at it on a global scale, and my gosh, that's even more so the case. So I think everything that everybody's been saying so far has been incredible. But that's what sticks out to me.
I think for me, thinking back to those students, and it goes along with what Susan and Feli have both said, but I remember being a new teacher, a first year teacher in the classroom, and I had students come in from Mexico, did not know any English, and they were just literally thrown into this environment, but not just the environment. Every single class that they had to take, they were thrown into that with this expectation that they were going to complete the work. And I remember as a first year teacher being completely shocked by that expectation because how even is that possible? So I think for me the challenges were the isolation, but then the limited access to resources was one of the things that I noticed right away. They didn't have a lot of resources. They didn't have a lot of support. In addition, their parents didn't have a lot of support. So I know Susan had hit on that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as we continue on. Our next question, Ryan, you've got this one.
I do have this one. So when you think about the techniques and activities that educators can use to help multilingual language learners feel more included in a classroom setting, what are the best ones? What are those ones, the techniques and activities that help them feel more included in that classroom setting?
Well, for me, I guess I'll go first. Is I like to give students choice boards. That means they can decide how to be assessed and what tools they want to use to be assessed. So if they feel better with video or audio, they can use that. If they feel better reading or writing, they can use that. So there's a lot of information out there on how to do choice boards. And that's one of the ways that I think that if you do that kind of activity, your students will feel more comfortable being assessed and will use their strengths to be assessed. I'm all about strengths here.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
See, and Ryan, I'm going to go back to question one, to what you were saying. And I definitely agree about student expectations, right? And yes, establishing the relationships, but also knowing our student expectations. And I'm going to add something kind of controversial right here, right? Because I personally love data. But I've heard and read different opinions, different feelings about data. To me, data is another way to create relationships. It is part of establishing those relationships with my babies, because with my students, my babies, right? Because part of establishing the relationships, I am going to get to know them, right? But I also, as part of knowing them, I need to know how to help them. And data is going to guide me. It's going to take me to the exact ways on how I am going to personalize the learning for every single one of them. But again, like different people, different opinions about data. I strongly believe we should include the data. We should know about our babies, knowing the data, knowing where they're coming from, knowing their language domain, the proficiency of the language domains, right? Like you were saying, Tisha, I was in the classroom for 19 years, and I was very fortunate to have babies like me that moved from Mexico to the United States, right? So that I was able, and going back to what Susan was saying, I'm able to speak their languages, right? English and Spanish. But in other places of the United States or other places on the planet, we don't have that privilege, right? We might not speak the language that our babies speak. But I know we're going to continue talking about, because we have so many ideas that we want to share, where we are going to talk about the different tools that we can use in the classroom, such as Wakelet, such as Flip, and other technology tools that can help us differentiate and create those connections with our babies, but always knowing what they need. So as a result, we can personalize the instruction for them, right? All of this, and of course, I'm going to talk about Flip. All of this is done, right, using Flip.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Flip and Wakelet and many other apps, but right here, we're best friends, right? We can app smash beautiful.
Yes.
Like, we are best friends. Somos bien buenos amigos.
Yes. Sí.
Yes. So we can bring, going back to the question, Ryan, like the strategies, right? Like the things, the techniques and the activities that we can do with our babies. All of this can be done using Flip and, of course, using Wakelet. So with all of the features that we have available in Flip, such as the lenses, right? Because if they don't want to show us their beautiful faces when they're sharing their voices, because it's all about their voices. We want to hear their voices so that they can practice all the language domains, right? So we can provide them with the lenses, the stickers, the filters, the text, the mic only, and also the topic moderation, right? Telling our babies, hey, part of the relationship, you're safe. In my classroom, you're safe. I'm here for you. We are a team. So all of this is available from our app. And then we bring all of these and create all of these collections using Wakelet.
Yes.
No,
I think that's great. Feli, you know what I was thinking as you were sharing that, and it goes along with what Susan said about choice boards and giving choice, right? And them feeling safe. You feel safe when you are given choices and your teacher said, yes, you can use this choice. So I'm going to go to this particular, activity. I think what comes along with that is you reduce the shame that those students may feel for not feeling like they belong, right? There's so many different emotions that are kind of going in there. And you're absolutely right. I was thinking through this, Ryan's question, and I was thinking through some of the things that I like to do, which is you've touched on all of that, the pictures, the graphics, the videos. I think when you can have them speak in their native language and teach them those translation tools, and you're bridging language gaps, then you can have them collaborate, right? And then they start feeling like they belong, which in turn brings this confidence about them. And then they're really getting some of those, that learning, right? You're hitting those learning objectives, and it really just kind of plays on to each other. So I think you're right. There's so many incredible tools out there, but and it's not a secret. I think everybody knows that I was using Wakelet and Flip in my classroom to bridge language gaps, to create confident learners. And I think that really it works well together. Susan, do you happen to have a choice board in Wakelet?
Yes, I do, actually. I made a little Wakelet for people to contribute.
Yes, you did. I think Ryan has that link. Let's go ahead and share that out, Ryan. If you have that.
I'll share the screen and show people what they can do with this.
Sure, go ahead. You share the screen. I'll pop your screen up.
Your screen. I don't know if I can do this. Let's see.
Okay, well, we'll let you practice that, and we'll get this link out to our viewers.
It's gonna work, I think. Chrome tab. Don't do that. Window. Here we go. Okay, I think I'm sharing the right screen, maybe.
Okay, I'm going to add that to the stream. There we go.
Screen. Hello. Okay, so I did find this really great website where there's all kinds of different choice boards that you can pick and choose from. So that's here. And then here are the discussion questions. I've made a Jamboard of it for everybody. So this is what's cool about Wakelet, is you can embed almost anything you ever want to embed and make a really great lesson. And so these are the 6 questions, and I started putting answers here. But if you could go ahead, everybody, you can add some of your ideas, and we'll have this multi-answered Jamboard ready to go. And then here, if you want to contribute to this Wakelet and add more of your ideas, just take a screenshot or just scan that QR code, and it should give you the share. And I think also Ryan's going to put the link for everybody. But if you don't have the link or you can't use a link, you can always use the QR code. So I think it's a great place for us to start sharing as a group here. And we have so many people from all over the world. I'd love to hear your ideas, because as I said, I'm teaching in Afghanistan, and it's tough, being remote and teaching like that. And so any ideas you have for me, I would really appreciate. So there we go. That's that. I think I can stop, right?
Well, I was going to leave it up, Susan, just for a couple of seconds, so that anybody that wanted to grab their phone and scan that QR code, or go grab Susan's Wakelet link and open that up. And while they're doing that, Susan, we'll leave it up for just a second. I'm going to move on to the next question, because you've hit on that a couple of times. How important is parent engagement when it comes to developing multi-language learners? How do you believe, you and Feli, Ryan, anybody out there, put your answers in the chat. How can we take steps to cross those language barriers and help those parents feel involved and included in that student's academic performance?
So in my situation with adult education is we train the parents. And a lot of times in the United States, the parents don't know how to operate. They're new in this country. Their kids generally learn English faster than them and do all the translation. And they take on a lot of parental roles where if we can get the parents to know about, and this is where adult education is really in the forefront, I think, in the United States, because since the pandemic, not every adult education program has gone back to face-to-face. We have a lot of classes that are called HiFlex, which is some students are in the classroom and some students are remote. And this gives us, the adult students who may be working and not have any time, a chance to go to school when they can. And I think that's made a big difference in our educational field. Ellie, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. And I love the perspectives right here, Susan. Susan, woo-hoo, you and I are going to become best friends, my friend. Like right here. Because I love the perspectives. Like you're talking, I love that you're sharing from your heart, but you're also sharing your perspectives and how your perspective and my perspective might be different. But when we join, right, when I learn about you and everything that we are doing you are doing for your students, I become a better teacher and we become better teachers, right? Because it's all about collaborating. So I thank you for everything that you're sharing, Susan. Thank you so much for that wakelet that you share. And I'm going to add a piece right here about our parents, because parent involvement is certainly very important for all of our babies, all of them, every single one of them. But something that I would love to keep in mind right here is that not all of our babies, not all of our children come from a two-parent family, right? So keep our open-minded about that. Some of our babies, some of our students may come from unfortunately broken homes or lack of support. And also in recent years, we have seen here in the US, we have seen a huge influx of refugees and immigrant babies, immigrant children who unfortunately they got displaced and end up living with relatives or in foster care. So once again, think about all of this, right? Yes, parent perspective is super important, but it's going to also take me back to what we've been talking about, establishing the relationships, knowing what's happening with our babies, right? Knowing their background. And so the emphasis, right? How important it is for us as educators to create this space where children are going to feel safe and accepted, so that learning can happen. And when we create a space where children know that they belong, they're going to remember, and then the curriculum will happen. So remember, relationships before curriculum.
I love that. Ryan, do you want to add anything to that parent piece?
I just think take it even another notch forward. The same thing, like relationships matter, not just with the kids, but also with the parents, and engaging them in there. That's the best way to get a supportive and enriching environment for that learning aspect. You establish that communication between the two, and you utilize things like immersive reader, and you utilize those tools that can help shorten up that distance gap between the school and the home communication. So it feels like one team who's supporting that student. And I think that's where teachers are champions all over the world, because we're all working on bridging that gap. It's a collective community, just like Elizabeth just said there in the chat. And I think that's what's crucial, is just making sure that we are taking the time to engage in the parents, whether they're all in the same house or if they're spread out across wherever, understanding where the families are and who those key components are. If it's grandma, if it's grandpa, if it's aunt, if it's uncle, who are the support systems, and making sure they feel equally heard and valued as part of that child's education.
Absolutely. I was thinking through this question as we were preparing, and I was in education for 21 years, and I was thinking through some of those situations, Feli, where those students didn't have support. They just had their mom. Their mom was working long hours. And then I was thinking through, as a school district, as a school, what were we doing? And it really did. This whole webinar has made me kind of reflect on some of those support pieces, but it's a partnership. If they don't have a parent and they are in foster care, you're now partnering with the foster parents, right? You need to be partnering up with whoever is in that student's life for support. Another thing that my personal district did, and I did not realize how lucky I was as an educator to have so many support pieces in place until really reflecting on this webinar, because not everybody's so lucky. But we had a liaison that organized language classes for the parents, and they met every week at our administration building. I'm not sure exactly the logistics of all of that, but I know lots of people came in to help, and they also created this bridge for those parents to get involved in the community as well, which it was just a really great thing. And like Elizabeth said, it really is a collaborative effort to really bring all these cultures together, because we're better together, right?
Oh, I might add that food is a really good way to bring people together.
Yes, absolutely.
And you read my mind, Susan, because it's all of the things that we can do, the celebration of cultures that we can bring into the classroom, inviting parents, right? And also just like we show our students and we share our curriculum with our students. I think it is also important to share our curriculum, right? And the ways that we teach with our students. And also, just like I was thinking that when I was in the classroom, we offered ESL classes for our parents, but we also offered technology classes for our parents, right? Inform them, and also inform just like our students, our parents, about digital citizenship and how important all of this is, right? And the use of social media and all of that, right? So all of this is going to complement the equation. And by equation, I mean it's our babies, our parents, or the person who's responsible for our babies, right? Because once again, we're not going to generalize, and us, right? So the three of us is going to be like the perfect equation, the perfect formula, right? Together, we are going to become better. We're going to become a familia. We're going to become a family for the like it's for our babies. So here the answer, right? The answer to the formula is the success of the student. But we're going to combine all of these factors so that this can happen. And becoming a team is key.
Yeah, I agree. It can't just be one of those, right? It has to be all of that collective. Susan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, while Feli was talking, I thought about having a Wakelet board where everybody collaborates, a parent, a student, a teacher, and they create their own little community board for each student can make that, and have a board with all that stuff on there and really bring together all three pieces.
Absolutely. Becky is asking you, Feli, can you elaborate on those classes that you offered and how did that work?
Of course, Becky. Besitos primero, thank you for being here. And yes, and like I mentioned, like I was honored and very privileged to work in a district with the majority of the population I service were like me, right? So my parents speak Spanish. Yo hablo español y no me callo. I'm pretty sure you already noticed, right, that I'm very talkative and very active. So I will offer the classes for our parents. I work together with my district where we have after school, right? Also knowing and sending surveys home, because sometimes parents are not available to make it certain times. Like you need to know, just like we know about our babies, we also need to know about our parents. What is the best time to have this professional development session or this taller for our parents? Maybe a Saturday, maybe we can have a Saturday camp where then some of our group or some of the teachers from our team take our babies and some of the teachers from our team take the parents, right? And then we combine them. It's actually an activity that I had one Saturday, and we combined that activity with a beautiful flip activity where parents were recording themselves with messages in Espanol, right, for our babies. And it was so beautiful. We cried and cried and cried and cried, right? And parents were like, the love and it was just a beautiful activity that I'm pretty sure it can happen everywhere. And yes, I'm going to talk about Flip because I used it in the classroom. I was very successful with it, among other apps as well. But I felt very successful with Flip, right? Which takes me to the next comment, right? The next thing that I want to share. We as teachers, sometimes we love our kids so much that we want to do so much, right? And sometimes we feel like overwhelmed. It is okay to use 1, 2, 3 apps. You don't have to show your kids all of the apps that are available because there's no time, right? We're always saying that's our thing, right? We don't have time. But if we stay with 3 apps, it is totally okay. And those 3 apps that I'm showing to my kids, I can show my parents those same 3 apps, so that if something goes home, right, homework. Yes. I'm not a fan of homework, but it's about equity. It's a different conversation.
She's got all kinds of like topics throwing out here today. Feli, you're on fire.
It goes back again to knowing our babies. If I'm going to say technology, homework, I need to make sure that my babies have access to what they need, right, in order for them to complete. And not only technology homework, all homework, but that's another meeting that we can have, another great conversation that we can have. But yes, going back to the main question, use your people and analyze your team. Maybe you have a person like me who speaks your students' language, and you can use that person to communicate with the parents. Lots of technology for us as teachers to use so that we can communicate with our parents. And if there's anything I can help you with, con toda confianza, I am here to help.
That's great. You know, I was thinking back, again, just reflecting with my own experience. And I remember I really remember the day that we hired a translator to ensure that all of the communication that was going home to parents was translated into those languages for the parents, right? So even something as simple as that, making sure that there is translation on the website so that those parents who are going to the website can translate. And of course, we can plug Wakelet and Flip and some other tools, but I used Immersive Reader and Wakelet, right, specifically for my parents to make sure that I could communicate with them. And I think it goes back to how you were saying, those students need to feel like they belong. Their parents also need to feel like they belong as well. And that's just going to give them more support at home. So Ryan, you've got the next question.
Yes, we've been talking a lot about making sure our students feel comfortable, making sure their voices are heard. But every now and then we're educators, and we know that sometimes we're not given the support or the practices or the scaffolding that's needed. And we need to make sure that our voices are heard. So thinking about it from the lens of an educator, like what should educators do if they feel that their district or their school isn't supporting them enough in their efforts to ensure that those multilingual learners get the highest quality education possible?
Yeah, that's a really big issue and a really big question. In California, we have a really structured and well-developed adult education program for parents. But as far as their voices being heard, we're all a minority. We're always like the third-class citizens in any class, in any district, in any situation. And so making your voices heard for multilingual learners is very difficult sometimes. But I think if we don't speak out, we don't get our voices heard. And I think speaking out is, you have to walk the walk if you're going to talk.
Yes.
And so I think you just have to be more proactive about, saying what you need. Not easy.
That you're right. You're advocating for those students. And in order to do that, you're going to have to speak out, right? That was one of my answers, is documenting concerns and really connecting with other people to see what their experience is. Feli, what's your advice?
I love everything that you have said. Like, Susan, boom, we're best friends, my friend. We're best friends because it's all about make noise.
Right.
Yeah.
Make noise. But a lot of noise, loud and clear, because you have to be the voice for those that can't be heard.
Mm-hmm.
We have to. And something that I also want to add right here, it's the importance of how we are each other's greatest resources.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
So I will always tell my babies, my teachers and my district, it's not about only the students that I have in my classroom, right? It's not only about my babies here. My babies and your babies are my babies. Every single kid in this campus is my baby. every single kid in the other campus, also my baby. I'm responsible for that. So, and every student in the place where I live, I'm responsible for that. Every student in Mexico, where I'm from, I'm responsible for that. So if I don't make that noise, and if I don't get other people to be like for that noise to be, how do you say it? My ESL just kicked in, noiser. so that we can fight those battles, because sometimes teaching can feel like you're on your own.
It's very isolating. Yes, absolutely.
Isolated.
I was gonna say to that point, you know, the ladies that I worked with at my old district, you know, supporting those ESL students, they often, as a tech coach, when I would work with them, they would often express to me how isolated they felt. And I think even, you know, when you're advocating for that population, it's hard because not everybody's going to understand your heart and where you're coming from. And I remember learning so much as that first year teacher, not realizing what was happening, right? That was a very big lesson for me. I remember communicating often with that ESL teacher. She would come to my classroom, she would pull students out and like really check in on them. And she didn't know that she was modeling for me how to be with those students as I continued on in my career. So I think, you know, finding a good mentor, you guys said that, connect with those colleagues. One of the things I said, and I know this is sometimes difficult and talk about controversial topics, Felly, but meet with your school and district leaders and express those concerns, right? Bring those up. But maybe if you don't feel like you can go alone, find those colleagues, connect with those other teachers who are experiencing that same thing and want to come up with a solution. And then like this is a great PD. I know somebody asked in the chat if this was going to be recorded. You should be able to view this later, come back to it multiple times on the Wakelet YouTube channel. So make sure you are subscribed to the Wakelet YouTube channel, because I know these ladies have shared so many incredible things today. Ryan?
I think you just have to remember that, you know, as educators, we're the voices for those who might not have that voice or that ability to speak out and tell them that they need more. We have that platform, and we have the ability to go to somebody and say, you're not doing enough, and do that in a nice way. And sometimes you have to do it in a not nice way. And it's just utilizing your voice to express that, because you're often going to run into, I'm a former elementary principal, right? And I've been there where I thought I was going to make all the changes in the world, and you just can't sometimes, right? There's so many things that you have to jump through. But I think if you always have your heart in the right place and your voice out there for everybody to hear, it's genuine, it's efficient, and it makes a difference. And I think we just have to keep championing for those students who might not have that ability to voice those concerns.
Absolutely.
And I want to talk about differences too, because I think our students' uniqueness, and this will happen no matter where you teach anywhere in the world, all your students have uniquenesses. I don't know if that's a word, but and if you can just find what is unique about each individual and have them share that with the rest of the class and the rest of the group and the rest of the community, you can make something happen.
I love that, Susan. I want to go back to the idea of the collection. And then Elizabeth said something in the chat, which I was kind of like cheering about, music and food, right? And I was thinking about that collection idea. How great would it be to create a Wakelet collection and have students sharing, you know, and maybe taking that to a city council, or, you know, sharing and the students coming up with the ideas, you know, having partners and really learning how to create something based on what we call as differences, but really bringing people together. I was thinking Cinco de Mayo. That is actually one of the festivities that our community put on together with those ESL classes, those adult ESL classes. And so I think there are so many possibilities out there. Felly, you have a graphic that you want to share with our audience. Are you ready for that right now?
Before I go into the graphic, maybe, Dalinda, I want to add something that I am also very passionate about, and it's collaboration, right? And it's social media for those teachers that want to, like we were talking about, making noise, right? Like how one drop of courage becomes a wave of confidence, right? And to me personally, social media and my professional learning network has been key right here, because I can see so many teachers sharing magical things happening in their classrooms, right? And I'm gonna go back to what Susan was saying. You on social media, you see teachers from all over the place, right? And any social media that you go to, TikTok by dancing, or on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever social media you're using, there is a space for us, right, to find that courage or to find those ideas. And all of this can also be used as a way of bringing data into these conversations that you might want to take into your or you might want to have with your board members or with your district leaders, right? Like, I'm here to tell you what needs to be changed, and I have the data to prove it, right?
Yes.
Because when we're having these conversations at those levels, right?
Yes.
We need that. We need evidence. It is happening in other places. How come it's not happening for my kids? Well, I don't see my kids there. I mean, representation matters. Like, how come I don't see my kids represented there? I want answers. I want to know. And,
Yes.
and I saw it on social media. So I would like to know how they're budgeting, or if you find someone in your team that can talk to their team so that you can get ideas how we can budget so that my babies are also exposed to that, right? Because it's all about our babies, all about our babies. And if you want to go to the next question, mi corazón, because I can stay here with you all talking about my babies the whole day.
I love it. Well, I love what you said, and I think you bring up a really good point. So I do want to take this moment for the two of you to share with our audience how they can connect with you on social media. Where are you? Where can they find you? I think you've hit spot on, right? It's things like PD and webinars and social media where you can take those ideas and go, well, look, this is what they're doing, and this is how they're building community, and this is how they're helping their students. How can we do something similar, right? So the two of you take the mic, and let's see where we can connect with you.
So go ahead, Philly, you go first.
Thank you, mi vida linda. Very simple. You can find me as Feli Garcia Lopez on all social media.
And me, Susan Gare, except for here where I'm at Gare.
That's awesome. Okay, so the last question that we have, and we've touched on a lot of the answers that could go with this question, but the last question is, multilingual learners require very personalized instruction. It can be timely. It requires lots of time and effort, lots of planning. What can we do as educators to make this process easier? Are there certain guidelines that educators should follow when it comes to personalizing education for those students?
Well, for me, personalizing is all about scaffolding and helping the students. And our students are really, at least the multilingual students in the United States, are really smart. They've come here, they're navigating through the community and the systems, and they're really smart students. And so what they need to do is you keep the same outcome, but you help them with the steps bit by bit to get to that outcome. And that is very easy to do, actually, with writing and listening and reading and speaking, where the students can work slowly and maybe with less language, but still have the same outcome of whatever your class is doing. I don't think it's a problem if we scaffold.
I have that. It's like Susan was reading my notes from whenever I was putting my notes together. I have scaffolding on here, and we've talked about that, but I can't agree anymore. You're not my best friend, Susan. You're Feli's best friend. Feli, you're up.
You don't want to lower the outcome ever.
Right.
And yes, scaffolding is key, right? A very, very good way, because and the scaffolding should be happening not only for our multilingual learners, for all of our babies, because all languages evolve, right? One of the things that I always share that I think it's key, and I'm speaking from my heart, is that every teacher in your campus, let me say it again, every person in your campus is a language teacher.
Yes.
It is not the responsibility of the English language arts teacher or the ESL, the English as a second language teacher. It's everybody. Just like I was saying, your babies are my babies are your babies, and our babies together are going to create an amazing future for all of us. They are our future. feedback. I want to talk about feedback as well. The importance of feedback, like, and how this how timely, like time, right? The time when we provide feedback. I also want to talk about access, or I'm gonna say it. Ya me conocen. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna talk about artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I am, and if you want to show the picture or the image that I sent, oh, not the best.
But that's what I've got here, Philly. I'm not. I wish I could zoom
Sorry.
in, but you know
I'm
what we'll
sorry,
do.
Maria.
Well, here's what we'll do. We'll be sure to share this out on social media.
And what I'm also going to do, Susan, I am going to add it to the collection that you shared with all of us. If that's okay, mi corazón, yes?
Yes.
Perfecto. Perfecto. Thank you so much. But I'm gonna, like, and it's my apologies. I'm sorry. It was my mistake. But I'm gonna talk to you about my approach to personalized instruction. This is the approach that I use with my babies, and I also shared with my teachers, my district, my campus, and every teacher that I had the opportunity and the blessing of talking to. And it is, again, using Flip and also app smashing with Wakelet, because think about all the student expectations that we have to teach 1 week. I know I've had conversations with math teachers and science teachers, and oh my God, like the amount of student expectations that they have to cover is just like, whoo. But I don't want you, I would love for you to think about your student expectations and then embed the language. Acquiring a language is not about dropping what you need to do in the classroom and bringing the language into it. It's about combining it. It's about getting my student expectations, understanding, analyzing the data, and then bring opportunities for my students to practice all the language domains. And by that, what I mean is the reading, the speaking, the listening, and the writing. And definitely all of the structures and all of the strategies, just like Susan was saying, scaffolding is one of the main ones, right? We need to scaffold for our babies, and then we let them go poco a poquito, poco a poquito. But the scaffolding is key. So in Flip, we can create these topics, right, where we are going to bring the student expectations, and we are going to provide the opportunities for them to practice the language domains. How am I going to support my babies? Well, I can use visuals. I can use sentence stems. I can use anchor charts, right? Anchor charts, very important. They're not only for decoration. I can use repetition, and I can also use AI, artificial intelligence, la inteligencia artificial. Padrísima. And also we talk about Immersive Reader. It is in our Flip, and it is definitely available in Flip, and it's also definitely available on Wakelet. And Immersive Reader, my friends, if you haven't used it, oh my God, it's like as amazing as Susan. But remember, I'm your best friend, okay? You can become best friends with Immersive Reader. Susan is my new best friend. So, and then the interaction. Allow your babies to interact, not only with you, but with other students in your classroom, and bring a bigger audience. We need to let go of our babies, because once again, like I was saying, we love our babies so much that we're like, oh no, I'm the only one who understands what they're saying. I'm the only one who understands what they're writing. No, let them go. It's okay. They are going to be successful. How can we monitor all of this? Oh, progress monitoring, right? As language acquisition teachers, we're very familiar with progress monitoring our babies. This can happen in Flip by the use of mixtapes, but we can also progress monitoring our babies in Wakelet by creating these collections. And imagine creating these collections at the beginning of the year, where we can bring these videos from Flip, beginning of the year, your boy, right? Your moi, middle of the year, and your end of the year, your
Yes.
EOY. And then having a beautiful product, not only for our babies, but also for their family, or the person who's or the people who are responsible for them. And it also works beautifully as documentation for us as well. because as language acquisition teachers, we also have to document, right? It's all about documentation as teachers. So all of these can help you in a beautiful way. I mean, how long did Susan take to share her beautiful Wakelet with us? I timed her and it was 3 seconds. 3 seconds. So imagine going to your principal right during your observation and you're gonna go, oh, I'm gonna show you all of my documentation in a Wakelet. Boom, boom, there it is. And they have the evidence, right, of everything that you've worked with the students in the classroom. What is the result of all of this? We're personalizing our instruction based on our students' needs, not our needs, on their needs.
Say that again, Feli. Say that again.
Yes,
Whose needs?
We are going to personalize our instruction based on our students' needs, not ours, theirs.
And Feli, I just want to add to something that you brought to my mind when you were speaking, is that you could take all this wonderful stuff that you've been, the data that you've gathered all year, and go to that board meeting with your data to show the students your audio, show the students the progression, show what you're doing to the board members of your district to get them to give you more funds and more ideas and more things that you can use, and to be less marginalized, and show them how good these students are.
I'm telling you, Susan. Yeah, wow, we're besties.
I see some ideas brewing here between Susan and Feli. I think you guys are gonna you really are already best friends, but imagine what ideas you're going to come up with. You know what I love, Feli, is you kept going back to the data. And one of the things that I wrote down for this particular question was formative assessment. And I talk about that a lot. I talk about it as an educator because I felt like those unit tests, those really big exams that I was giving my students, right? It was showing the snapshot, but by the time I was really getting that data, they were already not there anymore. And the formative assessment for me really gave me insight. It also gave me insight into where they were maybe emotionally. Maybe I could start noticing if something was off. So then I would be able to connect with a parent or a caregiver and see what was going on. So it really, really ties in the passion that you both have for this topic. I can feel it all the way in Dallas, Texas right now. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking, we've talked about like technology, we've talked about scaffolding. I'm glad Feli brought in the whole idea of like the data and the feedback, because that was something I had written down, was feedback as well. But I also wanted to touch on like teachers. If you haven't had any kind of culturally responsive teaching training yet, please go out, engage yourself, find yourself any kind of training you can find, because this issue is not going away. This is something that we need to not just handle and educate ourselves on, but become experts at, because as Feli said earlier, every teacher is going to be a language learner, or needs to be a language learner. We need to put those barriers down and understand that what we need to do is do what's best for our babies, Feli. Like I love that phrase, because I always think of these students of mine, whether they're from the classroom or from my time as an admin. Like I love those kids so much, and I love seeing them out and about and doing great things. But I think, by educators, make sure that you're up to date on these latest things that are coming out, and the latest ideas and materials and resources that are out there to help support you, and do your homework and find what works for you to bring into that classroom.
And I just want to say one more thing, because I love Flip as well. And one of the things I really love about Flip is you can make these video shorts that you can do every single day, and your students can wake up every single day, open their Wakelet, and there's a teacher short. How nice. Just talking about anything. You can do it on your phone. It's so easy.
Absolutely. We have one question that I want to get your opinion on. So I'm going to pop it on the screen. It's how to stimulate science learning with Wakelet, especially for students with language difficulties. Do you have any thoughts on that or suggestions?
Of course I do. The students come to you, even though they have language learning problems, they come to you with a lot of knowledge. And they know a bunch of science that you don't even know they know, because they can't express it to you. Mm-hmm. So again, just let the students tell you what they know. Let them search on the internet to find things in their native language that they can show you they know, so you can figure out where they actually are and what their strengths are. Even if you're teaching science, there are certain things they're passionate about in science. That's what you need to find, is their passion. and then that language will come.
I love that. Find out their passion. You could probably find that out in the first couple of weeks that you're hanging out with them, right? And that loops us back, Susan. That was beautiful. I don't even know if you meant to do that, but we've looped back now to the beginning of our conversation. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I've been checking because I want to make sure our attendees are able to ask you any questions that they might have. We're going to share once again, Ryan, if you'll pop that link in for Susan's collection. And we've also popped the link in the chat for today's certificate for this session. Just a reminder, if you loved this session and you love what these ladies shared with you today, send that YouTube link to all of your friends so that they can come rewatch this broadcast, because this was full of strategies and PD here for anybody, for the first year teachers like me back then, right? Who didn't know kind of how to handle that situation. And be sure to add to Susan's Jamboard. You know, she has the Wakelet collection. She has her Jamboards there. I know, be watching for Felly and Susan as well, because I feel like this is the dynamic duo that we didn't know existed. Exactly. We didn't even know we needed it, and now we do.
Yeah. I'm excited to see if this conversation keeps going on Twitter, like afterwards, and see how much more, conversation gets spread throughout the day from today's.
Yes, absolutely.
If I may add, my friend, just like going back to the science question, because I of course, I love what Susan said. At least from my experience, right, being a Spanish speaker, science has a lot of cognates, very similar to Spanish, right? And allow your babies to use their L1. It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes we see that, the student is using their L1 and we see it as a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. It is the transition happens easier when we allow our students to practice their L1. And that's a reason why, or maybe L2, we're talking about multilingual learners right here, and not boxing our babies to only one language, but to be able, to have opportunities for provide opportunities for our babies to show how amazing they are in whatever language they speak. Don't be afraid of their home language, por favor. Also, adding to what Susan was saying, and these videos, these shorts that we can create, you can create collections with visuals, and you can bring those videos into your collections, those flip videos into it, right? And use them. I talk about anchor charts. Your anchor charts can they can really be interactive if you have your anchor chart and flip AR code in it, where students or teachers or anyone can scan it and see that anchor chart in action. So there are a lot of different activities that we can bring into the equation. And going back to what Ryan was saying about that, ay Dios mío, espérame. The cultural aspect in the classroom, right? I'm going to share a personal story right here with artificial intelligence, right? Back in November, when we were reading and hearing about artificial intelligence, I was like, I'm gonna show these to my boys, right? Because I wanna impress my Omar and my Fernando, right? Mis hijos. And I was showing Omar, and Fernando, I was like, look what this can do, look at what can happen, right? And then my boys were like, Mommy. And I'm like, look what it can do, it's so awesome. And they were like, Mommy, that's been happening in video games for years.
Yeah.
And I was like, sorry, I was like trying to impress you. So don't be afraid of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
See it as your best friend. See it as Susan next to you as your best friend. Because artificial intelligence, if you don't have the support from your campus, or this is your first year teaching, or maybe this is your 5th or your 10th year teaching, but we still need those resources, right? We still need that best friend that's next to us. Artificial intelligence can help us with that. Flip includes, we have a new thing that it's called Copilot in our Flip platform. That is, it's a form of artificial intelligence, and it comes up with suggestions for topics with specific questions. Because sometimes I go back to the timing, right? Like how we're always saying, I don't have time. Or sometimes life happens. We are humans. We're teachers, we're humans. We have a life, right? We have personal things going on, especially when you're trying to create your lesson plan. For some reason, all of the things that you have to do at home, they pop in your head, right? And you have to I have to come up with a lesson plan. See your artificial intelligence as your best friend that is going to help you differentiate and also personalize instruction for your students, for all of your students, but especially for our multilingual learners. But never, never, never lose the fact that we need to do everything with love. Es la clave. Todo, todo, todo con amor.
That is a great ending statement, but I do have to say that my best friend is Chat GPT. It's not Susan, and I have. Well, you are my best friend, Ryan, but Chat GPT, and here's why I want to share this, because you said use AI to help you, and this is one of the things that I've really been doing. Is I know it sounds crazy, but I've been telling Chat GPT, I'm going to give you a scenario. And then after I've given you that scenario, I want you to give me X, right? And so I've been using that really often. And so I think even planning those lessons, scaffolding, activities, choice boards, you could put any of that into Chat GPT, for example, and get those ideas, right? If you feel isolated and you don't have a Susan or a Feli at your school, but they're here and you have access to them. So be sure that you're following them. This has been the most amazing time with all of you. The highlight, honestly, of my entire month. I've learned so much, but I think it's just the passion. It goes back to, I can feel your passion about this all the way here. And I think that's how we all need to approach, these students. They're all our students. Feli, you said it. I have always said everybody in that building at a school, a brick and mortar school, but even if it is an online school, every single person that is part of that is an educator, right? You are there, whether you are a janitor or a cafeteria worker or a substitute or the secretary, everybody has a vested interest in that. And I think we have to remember that. Do you have any last words before we end our broadcast, Feli or Susan?
I do. I want to make sure that I see in the audience this amazing group of people, and everybody has different situations, but I'd like to see if some of you, I have on the Wakelet, the discussion questions with Jamboard, have your voice heard. If you could go through some of you and answer some of those questions with your particular situation in mind, I think that would be fascinating for everybody.
Yes. That is your call to action. Susan has given you the call to action. Everyone, go add your scenario. Feli?
Thank you, mi vida linda. Yes, definitely. I want to say thank you, muchísimas gracias to every single one of you who was here, sending us their ideas and everything on the chat, having the time to continue with the professional development, right? Continue. We as teachers, we never stop being students, right? There's always room for improvement. There's always room for us to become better for our babies. Ha sido un honor y un placer estar aquí con ustedes. Susan, you're my best friend, Susan. I thank you for being here. I learned so much from you. I learned so much. My Wakelet team, you're always in my heart. I love you with all my heart.
I love you.
And I want to thank every single one of every teacher in the planet. And not only the teachers that we have in campus, but the teachers that we have in life as well. Yes. Muchísimas gracias por tanto amor, por tanto cariño y por tanta dedicación para cada uno de sus estudiantes. Thank you all so much for so much love, so much dedication, and everything that you do for our students in campus and outside of campus. Muchísimas gracias.
Absolutely. Thank all of you for joining. Thank all of you that have been watching. Thank you for spending time with us. And to my actual best friend, Ryan McGinnis, thank you for co-hosting this webinar with me and supporting me like always. You guys don't know, Ryan is incredible. I do shout about him on social media often. But Ryan, I have a teaser. I have something to tell you. Are you ready?
I am.
So, you and everybody watching should be keeping a very close eye on their social media, because I heard that a Community Week, Wakelet Community Week teaser will be going out today. I'm not going to tell you the time, but you want to be watching. And I can tell you from the inside scoop, it is going to be an incredible week, Wakelet Community Week in June. And do you know why it's going to be so incredible? Felly and Susan are going to love this, because it is going to be very focused on our babies, right? Our learning with our babies. And so we want you to be watching for that teaser. Community Week is so much fun. It's that PD that we were just talking about, and that PLN that Felly and Susan have been talking about. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Be sure to follow and connect with all of us, but including our panelists, to keep that conversation going. And we will see you next time. Becky, what is Community Week? Brian, tell her.
It is like the best week of the year. All PD, all for free, on demand, playable, at your wishes. So please.
Becky, go find Wakelet on every social media at Wakelet, all over the place. You do not want to miss this week, okay? We'll see you all again soon. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Besos. Thank you.